Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Veasey, and welcome to Mike's Alternate Reality Show, the talk show I put together to talk to creative people that are out there pursuing their passions. Got a great show for you tonight. Later on, we'll meet a young comedian from here in Staten Island, Patrick Haggerty. But first up is a published author. She just wrote the book INADMISSABLE, The Case of Lizzie Borden and Other Murderous Women. Please welcome Kimbra Eberly. Kimbra.
Hi.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
And congratulations on this book. They say you can't judge a book by its cover, but I do love the cover. I mean, that's a really nice work of art there.
Yeah, that's from a local artist, Erin K. Cobain, and she's fabulous. I couldn't pick the perfect person to do the front cover. And she actually made Lizzie kind of like a superhero.
Yeah, it looks like a comic book. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So I loved it. I wasn't expecting it, but I love it. Yeah.
So let's start with you. You are fascinated by Lizzie Borden specifically, but are you like a true crime fan? That's a genre now: true crime podcasts and true crime TV shows.
Yeah.
And it's something because I know I've known you for a long time. We're friends.
Yeah, of course.
And you've been talking about this book for a long time. And like most creative people, I was like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it, and boom, I see it.
Yeah.
But what got you interested in such subject matter?
Well, the Lizzie Borden case happened. It happened around 1980, where a friend decided to go on a vacation, and he said, "Let's go to Massachusetts."
Okay.
So it was on a whim, actually, and we ended up at the Borden house, and we went through the house. It's still in existence. It's a bed and breakfast.
So Lizzie Borden's up. She was from Massachusetts. This whole thing.
Fall River.
Fall River. Okay.
Yes, and that was when I became fascinated with the crime, because it's an unsolved crime, even though... So let me tell you that in 1892, supposedly Lizzie Borden killed her stepmother and
parent,
father.
Right. Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her father 40 whacks, and then when she saw what she had done, she gave her mother 41. Or did I get that backwards?
You got it backwards, that's right.
Okay, so yeah, I'm aware of the legend.
Yes.
I call it a legend. I know it really happened, but... It's become a bit of a
folklore.
Legend. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
but you're saying it's an unsolved crime that she was never proven to be the
well,
killer?
she was tried and acquitted.
Really?
Yes, just like O.J. Simpson.
Wow.
Tried and acquitted, even though people think that he did it. The same thing in 1892, people believe that she did it because she had tremendous motive to do it, which is her father was one of the richest men in Fall River.
Wow.
Like by today's standards.
So Lizzie Borden came from a rich family? Like they were a wealthy family?
The whole Borden, family were dating back into the 1500s, were very rich.
Oh, wow.
And they were the ones that took part in helping create the city of Fall River. You know, they were the select men. They were called. So in the book, I put history in it. It's a lot of history. It's a lot about women, and I wanted to puncture holes in people's belief of the crime and come out with the facts. So the bibliography in the back is huge, and it's because everything that I had questions with, I researched. So the book actually took 2 years to write, and it was mostly research.
Yeah, I was going to say you've been researching it longer than 2 years.
Well, I became the Advance got that wrong. I became fascinated with the story 25 years ago.
Ah, okay.
But it took me about 2 years to actually write the book and get down and dirty with, the
Lizzie Borden.
Yes. Like one myth, the 40 whack thing. In the first chapter, The Crime, I described the crime, and it was really brutal. I mean, and people get confused. She used a hatchet, allegedly. And a hatchet...
I think we can just talk without qualifiers now.
Yeah, if any Lizzie Borden fans see this,
okay,
though, they're going to
gotcha.
And that's why I wanted to make sure everything in here was correct.
Okay.
So it wasn't an axe. Axes are long,
they
big.
have a long handle, yes.
Yeah, hatchets are little. So, they're really easy to handle.
Right.
And they actually have the real hatchet that was in the trial at the Lizzie Borden, Fall River Historical Society in an exhibit that they have.
Are you allowed to use it if you want to kill somebody?
I'm sure these days some people might want to. So, what makes the crime so fascinating? The stepmother was hacked in the head 19 times, and then an hour later, they and through forensics, an hour later, the father was hacked in the head 11 times. So the crimes were like brutal.
And yeah, all headshots apparently.
All headshots, except for the first shot in Abby. It was kind of like a shoulder ear shot because supposedly they think that she was facing her killer, but when the first shot came down, she turned to escape, and then she was hit in the back of the head 18 more times. So we, if you sit and go like this and, just do that 18 times, that's a lot of anger and, a lot of energy coming out of it, almost exhausting.
Yeah, it's a good upper arm exercise. Though.
Yeah. So
that was a joke, Kimber. So just kidding about that.
Well, some people wrote, I actually have it in the book, some newspapers wrote that she was rather strong, a strong lady for, But
so is this like this must have been a media sensation if a rich family at the time, a murder in the house between family members allegedly.
Yeah.
It must have been just like the OJ trial.
Well, there were 50 reporters in the trial, the courtroom, when they were doing this, and they would report every day. I think the trial was like 13 days. And the lawyers that she hired were really well known. And she paid them a lot of money, like a lot of money, equivalent to say, let's say a prosecutor in today's standards got paid $300,000. Her lawyers got paid $7 million.
Oh,
yes, big difference.
Wow. So, how rich was she?
Well, the father, by today's standards, was probably $39 million.
And he had $39 million in the late 1800s.
Well, back then, it was equivalent to that amount of money today. A lot of money.
Wow. So she took the equivalent of $7 million. Right. And
yeah, she inherited all that money. And with her sister, Emma, they split it. But still, if, her father was a miser, he made them live middle class when they could have been living up on the hill with their cousins who were very rich. And Lizzie had the opportunity one time to go on a tour to Europe where she experienced the really rich life because only the elite could get to travel overseas back then.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they carried these huge trunks with their clothing. And if you could imagine being on a ship with the soot coming, because I think like smoke would come out of the chimney of the ship, and your clothes would actually get dusty, dirty from it. There's a lot of interesting things in this book about.
Well, it sounds like the movie Titanic.
Yeah.
No, I mean that was the early 1900s. I mean it was much later than this, but it sounds like. But in that movie, all these rich people getting on with their used trunks, and they always have a nice outfit. So wow.
Yeah, so what I wanted to achieve is to put the reader back in that time period. So I included a lot of letters, newspaper articles that were written by reporters, the trial transcripts. But you might ask, what makes my book so different than everyone else's?
I wasn't going to ask that, but that's a good question.
Yeah.
There have been many, many books about Lizzie Borden.
Over 50.
Wow.
Plenty. Yeah. Movies.
I saw a movie when I was a kid with Elizabeth Montgomery, who was Bewitched.
Yes.
So this had to be like the late 70s. It was well after Bewitched, but it was a big deal that she...
I love that movie. That's actually one of my favorite Lizzie Borden movies because it's kind of true, like it follows the real story.
Yeah, I don't remember it. I mean, I was very young when I watched it. I can't believe my parents let me watch it. But,
and she's related to Lizzie Borden in a distant way, like a distant cousin or something.
Oh, Elizabeth Montgomery.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So it is kind of amazing when you look at it like, wow, okay. But what makes my book different is I really wanted to understand why a woman back in that time period would do such a brutal murder. Like, what would engage so much rage? And
Especially because, I'm sorry to interrupt you, it's just,
no,
she was acquitted thanks to $7 million of legal fees, but you'd think,
and an all-male jury.
yeah, it's just to so violently kill your parents in their own home in the middle of the day, you can't be thinking, I'm going to get away with this.
Right.
I mean,
And it's almost impossible to think that there was no evidence of a robbery or anything like that either. That a person coming
yeah.
from the outside to come into the Borden house and do that murder, to go upstairs and know exactly where Abby is, to kill her, wait and hide an hour, and then when Andrew came home, kill him and leave with the bloody hatchet.
the father, oh, they left with the hatchet.
Well, I'm just saying, if you assume that it was an outsider that came in and did the murders.
So, yeah, all right, so you already told me she was acquitted.
Yeah.
What defense did they use?
How
did they get her off? I mean,
well, they really didn't
did they find the hatchet?
They found a hatchet, and this is the other thing. They found a broken off hatchet head without the handle, and it was up on a shelf in the basement in a box. And it looked like it was rolled in ashes. Like if there was blood on it, they wanted to hide the blood, so they rolled it in ashes, and they placed it up on a shelf in a box.
But were fingerprints a thing back then, or no?
No, they didn't have fingerprinting. Okay. But what would make an outsider take the time after a brutal murder? I mean, you'd want to get out, right?
But you don't know that was a hatchet, though.
Well, I'm saying it definitely wasn't the hatchet, but that is the hatchet that they presented in the trial. And the reason is because when they measured the skulls and the incisions, the 3.5-inch blade fit exactly into the skulls. And that was another ugly thing about the trial. They actually brought the actual heads. They
wow.
They boiled them, and they took all the skin off and everything, and they brought the skulls into the courtroom.
As evidence.
And they fit that hatchet head. This is why the story is so crazy.
Well, yeah.
And at the time Lizzie was there, she fainted. And they took her out in the hallway.
Nice play, yeah.
But people say, was that a fake faint?
Yeah, you never know, of course. And what else is she going to do if it's a polite thing to do to faint when your parents' heads are on the desk in front of you.
Right. So
wow.
It's almost like we were laughing, like with the OJ trial. If the glove fits, you must acquit.
Yeah.
If the hatchet fits,
Yeah, you can't acquit.
Right.
But how did they, what did they do? How did they get her off?
Oh, so there was an all-male jury, and back then women weren't allowed to be on a jury.
Okay.
Also, it was a time, if you really study the Victorian era, men were like knights in shining armor to come around and save their women. So there was no way they were going to put a woman to the gallows, no matter what. And that's why I inserted other women murders women stories in this.
Yeah, there's these 3 other women on the cover.
Well, actually, I have 10.
10 other women.
10 other women that committed murders around the Victorian era, and
these
they all
wow.
and they all were acquitted. Yes. So the
Wow.
reason that my book is so fascinating is because I correlated all the reasons together of how they relate to each other.
Like the sociological reasons.
Yes, it was a patriarchal society. Women were oppressed. The suffrage movement was going on. It was strong back then. Women weren't allowed to own anything. Everything was owned by the man.
Wow.
Like all their property, even an inheritance, would go to the man they marry.
Wow.
And a lot of these, her cousins never married. And she was a spinster. She was 32 when these murders were committed.
That's remarkable stuff. That sounds interesting.
So I followed these women, and the reason it took so long is I studied each one and their stories. And I'll give you an example of how women felt back then.
Reading from her book, Inadmissible. Here is the author, Kimbra Eberly.
Okay, so the one little thing I'm going to read is from partially from Marie Letharge. And she poisoned her husband. So when she was in jail, she wrote letters, and she became a real big advocate of women's rights. So this was a letter that a part of a letter. She goes, I allowed myself to be married in a daze, but when I came down to earth, I was revolted. I had abandoned my dowry, my will, my life itself, to one who had married me in order to restore his business with my fortune, adorn his parlor with my person, and complete his life with my poor life. But I announced I would only give my love if I were loved in return. And you know the reward I received for my candor was death, dishonor, and perpetual agony. So a lot of the women back then felt trapped because divorce was unheard of. In England, in an entire year, there were only 10 divorces awarded.
In England?
Yes.
And that's where they invented divorce.
Yes, around that time period. So women were struggling to get out of the situations. And the other big thing back then, since men ruled society, I put a whole chapter in.
I love the fact you put that in the past tense.
Well, we're trying, but you know. Okay.
No, look,
but anyway,
obviously-
I just want to read this one thing. I devoted a whole chapter on asylums.
Okay.
So women were put away in asylums or workhouses if they stepped out of line or, you know, they. So
just for being difficult, they could be carted away by their.
Yes.
Wow.
So a sampling of documented reasons to be committed in 1864 to 1889 included imaginary female trouble. I have to laugh at some of these.
Imaginary, yeah.
Hysteria, religion, laziness, masturbation, menstrual derangement, domestic trouble, superstition, political views, and astonishingly, reading novels.
A woman could be put away for reading
Any
a
of
novel.
those. And that's a partial list.
Wow.
Yeah, so I looked that up. Those are the laws. I mean, so that's what made me so crazy fascinated with the case. Basically, the perspective of women back in that time period.
Yeah, I mean, you're making a very strong case that basically society was creating these murders with their horrible, cruel, abusive treatment of these women by society, not even by by their family.
The relationships that they had
Well,
or
yeah,
didn't have.
But supported by these rules of society.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look. So let's. The book sounds fascinating. Tell me about this woman you say is a woman murderer from right here in Staten Island.
Yes, Polly Boudin.
Tell me about Polly Boudin.
Okay, so Polly Boudin was suspected of killing her brother's wife and child.
Okay.
And the story
And child?
And I think the child was 6 months old. Basically, they found them burnt in the kitchen underneath like this cot kind of thing that the wife stayed in.
Like a daybed?
Like a daybed,
Okay.
right. But after they did forensics, they found that she was also stabbed. And it's similar in the Borden case that she was stabbed, but a day later, then she was burnt.
So Polly
Supposedly did
allegedly
it for money.
stabbed her brother's wife and then the next day burned her?
Yeah, supposedly.
So did she die of the stab wounds and then she set the fire to cover up the crime?
Yes,
Supposedly,
exactly.
allegedly.
Yeah. And it's because, same story, it's because of money. She was trying to be legitimate in her household, and she was sort of like a rebel being involved with all these men. And
Polly was.
Yeah, she just could never get it right. So apparently there was money in the house, and they thought maybe she had taken it. Because
So Polly was accused of being a thief, or the brother's wife was accused of being a thief?
she was Polly
Polly.
was, yes.
Okay.
But the interesting thing, she had 3 trials. The first trial, there were so many people in Staten Island that, like, she couldn't have a trial in Staten Island. She had a trial, but it was what do they call that?
Biased?
Yeah, it was biased, but the trial, it was a hung jury.
Hung jury.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway,
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this is amazing stuff. I'm glad you got that Staten Island wrinkle in there. I haven't read the book yet, but I do recommend it. It is Inadmissible by Kimbra Eberly. We'll be right back after this.
Yo, listen, we got something we want to share with y'all today. Yes. That's really, really important. It's a little something that we both came up with. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm ready. Here we go. 5, 6, 7. Here we go.
This is healthy as
A
pasta.
pasta made with squash.
Gotta learn the proper way to perform
A
a
hand wash. It takes 30 seconds, so you'll see lots of suds.
good thing in quarantine.
Hot mamas and super studs, cause hygiene is so sexy.
Things will smell so sweet and moisturize them
And
after
give your skin a little treat.
individual digits.
Get the nails and hit the wrist. This goes for all people.
Binary queer and cis and sis and bro continue to flow.
Like baby Yoda, yoga.
Got the flow and now you know.
Hey,
You got the force and now you know.
Just wash your hands at home, hey.
Yeah.
And when you're not at home,
Yeah.
wash your hands everywhere.
Always. Please.
Come on.
Please.
It's my
please.
turn with this one.
Okay.
Excuse me. Ha!
So do you guys like soap? Is this a soap crowd? You guys like soap? Give it up for soap, everybody. That's right. Give it up for soap. That's right. You guys, I know, guys. I know. I'm doing a soap joke. I just did a toothbrush joke. I like to keep it clean. I like to keep it clean, everybody. Now, the next part of that joke is about prison rape. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into the prison rape portion of the joke. Let's get into the prison rape part of it. Have you guys ever heard this? That if you're ever in prison and you're taking a shower and you drop the soap, you're not supposed to bend over and pick it up, right? You guys have heard this? Don't drop the soap. That's what they say, right? Fellas, you can pick up the soap, all right? You just bend your knees. I mean, why would you pick up soap like this, you know? I feel like if you're picking up soap like this, then you deserve what you get. I think that's on you. I think that's your fault. I feel like a guy picking up soap like this in prison is specifically posturing, you know? It's like, man, this soap sure is slippery. I hope nobody fucks me in the ass. Man, this soap's so slippery. I hope it doesn't slip right into my mouth. Boy, howdy, this soap is really slippery. A guy who keeps bending over, but everyone's rejecting him. Come on, guys, I really...
Hi, everyone. We're back with Mike's alternate reality show. My next guest is a good friend of mine. He's a very funny young comedian from right here in Staten Island and one of the founders and producers of the Fifth Borough Comedy Festival. Please welcome Patrick Haggerty.
Hello, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Patrick, thank you for coming down. Good to see you again.
Absolutely, good to see you too.
We've done several shows together. I've done a few shows that you produced. I really appreciate the stage time. And your shows are always a good time. Which is why I like doing them.
Yeah, definitely. It's always nice to have you. It's always fun to have you.
Thank you.
The Veezman.
The Veezman. Yeah. So, how did you get started in comedy?
My brother was doing it since I was very young.
Your brother's a comic also?
My brother is a writer, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but we're not here to talk about him.
Not here to talk about him. Okay,
yeah, but he's a writer, so he was doing sketch comedy when he was in college, which made me 7 years old when he started. He's the oldest of 5. I'm the youngest of 5.
Oh, there you go.
I've been around it forever.
That'll do it. 17 years of exposure to comedy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, who were your favorite comedians growing up?
Growing up, I really like Mike Birbiglia.
Oh my God, he's great.
He's my favorite. And then there's other guys who I'll mention to people who have not heard of Mike Birbiglia. I'll make sure to say Jerry Seinfeld and Louis C.K. Are we allowed to say him anymore? Yeah.
Look, my favorite comedian growing up, I had 3. We had 3 comedy albums in my house that my parents had. It was Bob Newhart, who, thank God, it's still on the good side.
Yeah.
Woody Allen.
Uh-huh.
And Bill Cosby.
Uh-huh.
So, Bob Newhart's about 95. I'm just praying he can hold it together a couple more years.
For a few more years, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, please, Louis C.K. I mean, come on, he was the king of comedy, you know. Wow.
Yeah, until he became the king. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
This is a family show.
I almost said it now. He's the king of, but yeah, why? So, okay, yeah. So what made you go from, oh man, I love this, to I can do this, to actually getting up and doing it? Like, tell me about your first time doing stand-up?
Yeah, it was on Staten Island. It was for a comedy competition that I entered at the Looney Bin.
The Looney Bin.
The Looney Bin. The Looney Bin. I don't know. It's
Now it's a brand. It's not
now
a
it's a
place
brand.
anymore.
It's not
Yeah.
really a place anymore. They do it at diners and such. But the Looney Bin, I did this comedy contest when I was 19 years old, and it was kind of if you got through to the next round. If you won this comedy contest, then you would make it to the next round, which was so it was part of a bigger contest. So I did this one night where the top 5 made it to the next round. Like that's how it worked. It was a pretty big contest, especially for Staten Island. And actually the first night of this competition, I won. So my first time
ever on stage.
Ever on stage.
No open mics.
No open mics before. I had done the school plays when I was a kid,
yeah.
but this is the first time I did anything comedy related, really even.
Wow.
And I won a competition. So.
What's so bizarre is same exact story.
Oh wow.
Entered a comedy competition, stand up New York, funniest person in Staten Island, and I won my night. It was a 3 to 5 comics, and I won that time, and then I did not win the finals.
Right, yeah. I did not win the finals. You know who did win the finals?
Pete Davidson.
Pete Davidson. That's right.
That's
Pete
amazing.
Davidson won the finals.
Yeah. My wife was there that night.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah.
My good friend Tracy Rosenberg, when I hit to talk about her either.
Right.
But she was there supporting Tracy
That's
Rosenberg.
right. That's right. Me and my brother, a different brother, not this brother I was mentioning before, me and my brother were both in the finals
Oh, cool.
of this competition. Yeah.
That's amazing. That must have been a fun night for your parents.
Yeah, it was cool. They actually wanted to come this time. Every other show, we have as comedians, we know that. It can be hard to get people to come out. But
For the second time.
For the second time.
Well, actually, it's hard to get them to come out for the third time.
The third. That's right.
Third time. It's like they come back, they have a great time, then you bring them back. All right. Then the third time, they're like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that again.
Right, and it's not so bad. You get to the point where you prefer to perform in front of strangers anyway. So that's my preference. So and it's worked out that way.
So we're running out of time, but one thing I'm very excited about is you are the producer of the Fifth Borough Comedy Festival. You and some other guys, and you've done it for how many years now?
We just did our 3rd year, and we're starting to set up the 4th.
Right. But what I was so proud of you guys for doing is in 2020, you did it in the fall of 2020, and you did it for real. You did real shows, live shows with audiences, social distance, safe, outdoors, the whole thing. But you guys did the work, found the venues. Some of them were in Jersey. And I just wanted to congratulate you on that. I think that was a terrific piece of producing you and your partners did.
Yeah, definitely. If you had seen the chats that came from it, it was a lot of work. It was a pain in the butt at a lot of times because it was tough. It was tough to find venues. We expanded our reach a little bit. We went to Brooklyn and Jersey a little bit this time, which was good in a way. Kind of the
spread the brand.
The silver lining of it is that we wouldn't have done that otherwise. We wouldn't have gone out of the island otherwise. But because of everything that happened, we kind of were forced to. So now that's the plan going forward. We'll go anywhere.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you well.
Yeah.
You and your buddies. I hope to be part of the festival this year.
Absolutely.
And definitely going to have you back soon because I think we could talk for hours about this stuff.
Yeah, I think so too.
Thank you for watching Mike's Alternate Reality Show. I want to thank my guests one more time, comedian Patrick Haggerty. Find him on social media and all over the web. And author Kimbra Eberly, whose new book, Inadmissible. You can Google that as well. I totally recommend it. I'll see you next time. Good night.